Hello and welcome to this video, which is covering the third round of this year's Tata Steel tournament. And I have to admit that I'm not entirely comfortable doing this video, but I still do it because it's a bit difficult to do at a later stage. I'm not so comfortable because there's one game which is so complicated that I didn't really feel I can I can tell you something totally conclusive. But yeah, I'm so busy on Tuesday, so the only chance that I do a video that is not going to be like a couple of days old is like do it right now. Yeah, I cannot do it on Tuesday, so let's get going. We had a couple of interesting games today, and I'm going to focus on the three decisive games. There were 4 draws, and those weren't all that exciting. Andrekin played white against Carlsen and played it very close to the vest, forcing a draw early on. Elyanov with white was in slight trouble actually against Hari Krishna. Important game for the standings, but it wasn't so exciting. I don't think I should necessarily show it here in the video. We had also the game Wojciech-Giri, which ended in a draw. Fairly solid game. I don't think there was something for either side, something very spectacular. And then there was the game Adiban-Aronian, ending in a draw. Fairly correct draw, I think. So we have 3 games to look at, and I'm going to start with Karjakin with white against Luke van Vele. And Luke went for a surprise here with d6, going for the Pirz. That's pretty rare in his opening practice. Seems that he wasn't up to playing a Sicilian here in this situation. I don't know if he actually played the Pirz before. Probably not. Or if he did, it's not something very regular. So Karjakin plays the Austrian attack here with f4. This is what he usually does. In fact, this line is not that popular on a higher level. I'm not quite sure why that is. It always felt quite principled to me. But okay, Van Vele plays a main line with knight c6. Here, black also has some other options. Most popular is maybe the move knight a6 in order to play c5. Okay, e5 played by Karjakin. That's one of the 2 big possibilities. Castles is the other one. And all this seems, I think, fairly logical. Black develops the bishop, and after these moves, we see a position quite common for this variation. Black has this bishop on g7. It looks at this pawn chain, and it is absolutely mandatory for black to attack this pawn chain. He should not just sit and wait or play something slow. He has to break this open with f6. This is a good move. Long castles. And now Van Vele took on e5. This initiates a big tactical sequence here in the center.
Check.
That's check. And d takes e5. Yeah, and already here, very early on, we come to a critical situation. Here, Van Vele absolutely had to play the move queen to e6. And this wasn't all that bad for black. Yeah, the queen coming to e6. So what should white do? Most interesting maybe is bishop to d5. If white takes it, black is just going to recapture. And this is not that bad. Yeah, there's some pressure on e5, and in many cases we will have a huge amount of exchanges in the center. For example, something like a3.
Check.
This is just one way of playing it, and here the likelihood of a draw, I think, is pretty high. White has a slightly better structure, but it feels quite drawish. The main thing is that what Van Vele played did not work. He played knight takes e5, and this actually has a huge tactical problem. Knight takes e5, this is correct.
Check. Check.
And now this was the tactical idea. that yeah, the former Dutch number one had. However, this has a big hole, as white can take on g6. And this is now extremely problematic for black. The queen is attacking the bishop here on g4, and black cannot just easily move the bishop, as this bishop has this job of protecting the rook. It's extremely awkward for black. He tried to move rook to d6, and yeah, maybe this is one of the best practical tries. The position is objectively lost already here, but Kayaki now did not play in the best possible way. Yeah, the bishop is attacked. White now took this bishop, but it seems that the move bishop d3 was a lot stronger according to the computer. It's not a super intuitive move, still surprising that Kayakin did not play it. Yeah, what's the deal? The bishop is attacked, and also there is the threat of of queen e4, threatening both checkmate and the bishop with a check. The critical line is probably this check here.
Check.
After which white should not take, but play king c1 is the strongest move. And black has not solved his issues. Still there's queen e4 around. And taking the bishop is of course also an option if the circumstances are correct. For example, this move, queen e4, and now something like rook f1
Check.
is the funniest line. Yeah, bishop takes.
Checkmate.
Oops. But white can do this. You see, this is not super intuitive.
Check.
But on the other hand, it's quite clear that this should be a win for white. In the game, after queen takes, rook takes, and queen e4, white was better, but it wasn't necessarily winning. However, the position is much easier for white to play, as the queen is just a very mobile piece and can take black's pawns. Black's pawn structure is not very coordinated. This is ultimately probably too difficult to defend in a practical game, and Van Velde didn't manage. Yeah, white has a simple plan, just pushing the queenside pawns, and this is what happened. Yeah, black doesn't get any decent coordination. One reason is also that his king is permanently weak on h8. Yeah, black would need some counterplay with the pawns, but you cannot push the e-pawn, as it needs to be the anchor for the bishop, yeah, like this. And the h-pawn you cannot push, because then you expose your king even more, and that's not going to be yeah, possible to survive. In the game, there was just one more nice moment.
Check.
Can fast forward a little bit.
Check.
And this was here, that Kayakin actually was able to sacrifice the queen. Yeah, he could, or he took this pawn and allowed this situation. And it's well known that two connected passes are tough to defend against for a rook, and those two pawns, they do the trick.
Check.
Yeah, here Van Velde resigned. He will not be able to stop the pawns. Yeah, a game that was almost decided, we can say, with one move, this knight takes e5, after which Kayakin could have won even more convincingly, but the way it went, the position was just, from a practical point of view, extremely tough to play. The next game that we're going to look at is the game that I mentioned, where I feel a little bit overwhelmed by what happened. This is the game between the Chinese prodigy Wei Yi and Russian Grandmaster Jan Nepomniachtchi, and I really don't know what was going on in this game. Even with the help of a computer, I feel like I have no idea. And probably you just need a lot more time to check a little bit yourself and get the help of the engine. But as I mentioned earlier, I cannot I just don't have time on Tuesday to look at this much deeper. So I'm going to try the best that I can. We had a knight off and bishop g5 played by Vailly, the the sharpest move, maybe the most tactical move. And we get the delayed poison pawn. I'm not a theoretical expert here at all, so it's tough for me to really point out the theoretical relevance of this game. What I know is that in recent games, the move a3 was the most popular. White didn't all that often allow the capture on b2. Now black cannot take because knight a4 traps the poor queen. Knight bd7, bishop e2. And now the move e5. This, according to my database at least, is a novelty. There had been, bishop e7 was seen before in this position, which also looks a lot more standard, let's say, for this kind of situation. After e5, we enter tactics, complications immediately. Knight f5, of course. I say of course, he spent 30 minutes on it. But it's the move that kind of screams out to be played in a way. Yeah, white certainly does not want to retreat the knight. Maybe f takes e5 first was a consideration, but okay, knight f5. But we can assume that with this time spent that Vailly would had to play this now over the board. Black went g6. Again, if they take on b2, there is no square for the queen. g6, bishop f2. Yeah, and now we are now in an absolutely forced territory. The queen is attacked, again, cannot take, and if the queen retreats after knight d6, white just wins. So black has to play knight c5, and now b4. And this is what I meant with this is a crazy game. We already have those extremely tactical complications early on, and it never gets to a situation where you can easily assess what happens. So here both knights are hanging. Black doesn't really have anything else. He has to take this one, and now he just castled. Yeah, he also could have taken here and played rook b1. There are tons of possibilities. He castled, delaying the capture for one move. Yeah, Nepomniachtchi now took on e4. And knight takes e4, f takes, and c5 got captured as well. So at least now we have material equality in terms of pieces. That's nice. But pawn-wise, it's a total mess. Currently, white has 5 pawns, black has 7 pawns. Black is 2 pawns up, and he might capture on f4. This move 17, is an interesting moment in this game, because here's the first moment where the computer finds an improvement over Vailly's move. He played the capture, very natural move. The move queen d5, however, also was quite interesting, and probably a bit better if you believe the engine's analysis. Queen takes e5 is a simple threat. A possible line would be bishop g7, and now maybe rook d1, just centralizing. If black takes here, bishop c5 is going to be quite awkward. It's an absolutely messy position. Bishop e6 is also an option, and it continues to be extremely complicated. This was played, and note that Vailly's time is also quite down already. Bishop e6, rook b1, tempo, and bishop g4. White is material down, and he has to make something happen. Bishop g4 makes perfect sense. The bishop e6 is kind of anchoring, it's the anchor of black's position. It's protected by f7, it protects f7, and it kind of ties the whole thing together. Rook g8. I'm sorry. b5 was played first. Bishop h4, activating this bishop, and now rook g8. And rook f6, which is a strong move. Tempo on the queen. Yeah, if queen takes e5, white has the tactical shot. Rook takes a6. It's quite nice, huh? So black cannot capture.
Checkmate.
Yep. And white will have a dangerous attack. The engine doesn't really give white a huge advantage, but this, I feel, should be good for white. Yeah, it just looks very dangerous. But this is what I meant. I'm not totally sure. You know, those kind of positions, you cannot just give the computer and let it calculate for 5 seconds and then you say, okay, I've got it. You really have to look more closely. So I'm unsure about many things here. Queen g4 was played and queen d2 covering the mate on g2. Yeah, queen d7. After this, white is getting a definite advantage. Queen e6 probably was better. Maybe what happens, the trade at e6 was overlooked by Nepomniachtchi. Maybe. I don't know. White now wins some material. But what is not clear to me at all, if this material configuration is actually a big advantage or not. Black has to take with this. Yeah, this is too easy.
Check.
So we take with this. Rook f7. And rook g5. Otherwise, if black covers this,
check,
a whole piece will get lost. So this is the way to just lose the exchange.
Check.
After some intermediate moves. Yeah, a4, by the way. That's an important move. a4. White keeps the a-pawn. You should not trade on b4 and reduce the pawn count even more. This is sometimes the problem if you have an extra exchange. If the pawn count is dwindling down more and more, the exchange doesn't mean all that much. And here a4 is important to keep an a-pawn. So we get this ending with white being an exchange up. And in this ending is extremely tough to evaluate. There are many critical situations.
Check.
There is one situation a little bit later.
Check. Check.
There's a repetition first, and then Vailly tries to continue.
Check.
I got this one. Here b3 was interesting. This is something that at least I could look at a little bit. It's interesting, trying to get a quick b pawn. It seems to be maybe better than c3, but again, I'm not very confident. Yeah, here rook c5 check.
Check.
King back, I guess. No, to f4 even. That's my analysis. Rook c4, b2. Yeah, and the pawn here is the issue. Black is an exchange down, a full exchange, but the pawn is very strong on b2. I'm not sure that it leads to a win. A line that I continued a little bit actually ended in a position that seems okay. Yeah, black can
check.
even give this up.
Check. Check.
Up to this position. And black's idea now is rook c8 and takes on c2. I'm not sure that this is a win. Absolutely not. It could be a draw. Yeah, the combination of this bishop and this pawn is certainly worth the rook. And yeah, specifics in the position are also not helping white. I'm not sure. Maybe there is some very precise way for white to make something out of this, but I feel black has fair drawing chances here. This was played in the game, c3. And also this part of the game, I mean, I can absolutely not tell you precisely what was going on. It's clear that white is fighting for a win with the black bishop being a little bit stuck there on h6. The bishop has a hard time to find good squares.
Check.
But it demands extreme precision here in this position. Black always has potential for breakthroughs here, so that the c pawn or b pawn could become dangerous. So I'm really not quite sure about this part of the game. It's a little bit later. I can tell you
Check.
something
Check.
about the position. Yeah, I got here. And now we get more stuff traded. The thing is that there are still many endings in exchange up that are not going to be winning. You cannot even trust the engineer all that much. So b3, that got traded.
Check.
And rook c7. Yeah, here my engine says rook takes e4. Maybe that was more precise, but I'm not entirely sure.
Check.
The decisive moment, I think, comes a little bit later. We
Check.
can go
Check.
ahead a little bit
Check.
and see that black managed to reduce the pawn count, which is an absolute key thing. And
Check. Check. Check.
let's go to
Check.
the critical position. Got this ending, and here
Check.
in this position, black can draw with the right move. He has to go, actually both moves draw, but he has to be very precise. I'm sorry. Here we have the key position, rook e4. This position is actually a draw. Yeah, I screwed up my notes even here. This position is actually a draw, but black has to find the only move to draw, which is bishop to c1. This ending is actually yeah, quite complicated, and yeah, tough for me now to show. What is clear is what he played does lose. I mean, that much we can find out pretty quickly. This is a draw according to table base, but what he played, oops, I'm sorry, what he played, sorry, king f7, there it is, king f6. Yeah, king f6 loses because now, no, actually here bishop c1 still draws, right? I totally screwed up my notes. Yeah, bishop c1 still drew, but here he must have missed something after rook c4. The problem is simply that black now has no way to cover this pawn or prevent decisive change of the position. What I mean is that this is losing as the pawn promotes. Yeah, we have the square, and white is well within range of the b pawn, and this means you have no square to go to. If you go here, you lose the pawn, and other moves are basically the same thing. Here again, white is covering the two critical squares, so the a pawn, and with it the game gets lost. Yeah, this ending again is fairly complicated. There are some interesting points about it. I remember that for the ICC, Grandmaster Yarmolinsky made a series on that, looking at this ending for a very long time, but I have to admit that I've forgotten most of it. It's yeah, this is a game that you can probably analyze for a very long time if you have the time on your hands. So white won the a pawn, and with it ultimately the game. So a win here for Vailly, who is getting to a +1 score in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken. The final game I want to look at is the game between Wesley So and Richard Rapport, the Hungarian player. That was also an absolutely amazing game. But I feel that I'm a little bit clearer here compared to the other game in my evaluation. So we had a Queen's Indian defense by transposition, and this is this knight e4 line. is the old main line of the Queen's Indian. It has a very solid reputation. It's a little bit unusual to see a report playing such a solid line, but we'll get an interesting position pretty soonish. So we have transposed now to a position type that looks more like a King's Indian. Normally, this position type has a reputation of being a little bit better for white. And I think what happened in the early middle game here basically confirms that. White has a little bit more space. This bishop now here got traded. And what black lacks in this position a little bit are pawn breaks. Black cannot easily play c6, b5, f5 is not easy to play, but is in comparison the most realistic. This is why I would prefer white. White has got more space and clearer ideas. For example, long term, white could try b3, a3, b4, this kind of thing on the queen side. Have to prepare it properly, but this is an idea, while I'm not quite sure what black is doing in the meantime. We got a very interesting position now. h5 was played, stopping any expansion on the king side. But yeah, so insisted on this, playing f3, idea being g4. I was actually a bit surprised about this plan, playing on the king side here. I wouldn't have considered this seriously, I think. But I mean, it seems to be okay. It doesn't seem to be terrible or anything. But I'm pretty certain that I would have gone for something else here, trying for play on the queen side. But okay, we'll see what happens. White gets this g4 in, gaining a bit of space, and yeah, after h5 being played by black, this makes some sense, of course. Yeah, white might try to trade the g pawns, and then in an ideal world he would get the knight over to f5 with a really fantastic situation if you get there. King h7, rook h1, rook g8. I think this is all kind of logical. Yeah, black activated his bishop to h6. Yeah, very very key moment now in the game, and the starting point now of some really crazy complications. Up to this point, this game yeah, doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. It could well have been some game, I don't know, Karpov against Valery Salov from the 1990s. But now crazy things happen. After a move like knight g3, the position is probably equal. But this was played by So, and I think he probably just missed the next move. I mean, I don't think you just walk into this reply. Or let's say, that's the wrong way to phrase it. I don't think you you play accepting that this move is in the position. Report now played the really great move, bishop c1. Yeah, it's always something that you should play. If it's kind of possible, you kind of have to play it. Yeah, putting the bishop here on the back rank, actually on the starting square for white's bishop. Of course, the simple idea is that
check.
Here's a big fork. And with white not being able to take it, black is attacking the pawn. And if you cover it, like with the queen, let's say with this, black is taking it. Because there's just the same fork there. So it's not actually easy for white to react to that. Yeah. So what to do? Yeah, So just played knight g3, giving up the pawn. And now it's gone. Really funny. By the way, we should check what happens after b3. After b3, black, yeah, well, there's a couple of ideas, but I think this is a good one, maybe. Trying this. You can try bishop b2 as well, but that's a bit, yeah, okay, probably a bit too much. So this happened, and he put the knight on b5. Yeah, so how is black going to recover this bishop on b2. It's kind of stranded, it seems. Yeah, there is a way. You just go back to c1 again. I think this is great. Yeah, this bishop has a real great journey from g7, h6, c1, b2, back to c1. Really great. Okay, so h5 got taken. And the position is not good for white, really not. Yeah, he had overlooked this bishop c1 idea. So, yeah, takes bishop f4, knight c3. And now I think, yeah, a very nice and aggressive move by Report. He plays f5. This is, I mean, this is the kind of move that you play if you're extremely confident in yourself. So f5 opens up the position and offers a pawn. But after taking the pawn, as we will see, black's compensation will be absolutely tremendous. So
check.
White took this. Knight takes and rook to g8. And this looks very scary. Yeah, we have to also keep in mind that in this position, black just has sacrificed one pawn. He's not like down a piece or something substantial, just a single pawn. And the idea is very straightforward. He wants to check on g2 and then play rook d2 with tempo. So then double on the second on the second rank. Note that the white pieces, yeah, both rooks and this knight, they don't attack anything. They just are basically standing around and don't do much, especially considering black's king. Yeah, there's no counterplay against black's king. The two rooks on the h file are totally useless, and this bishop is absolutely dominating, covering those crucial squares. So in the game, king f1 was played, and here we have a really amazing situation. Black now has a fantastically strong move that yeah, gives him an advantage, but it was very difficult, or I think it was difficult to find. But Report did the job. He played the right move, and this is the really amazing move b5. Those breakthroughs on protected squares are always very difficult to play. Yeah, b5, extremely strong move. So why? What does happen now? We have to look at a couple of possibilities. The first one is knight takes b5. After knight takes b5, black plays rook g2 and invades. A key idea is that if black plays rook g2 immediately here, then knight e2 is actually defending this quite well. Yeah, blocking the second rank so that rook d2 is not possible. This is the reason why inserting this is an achievement. Now rook d2 is impossible to prevent. What else? If white stays and does not react to this here, then b4 is going to happen. That also, oops, sorry, come on. That also doesn't look very, yeah, very good for white. In fact, it is probably losing. In the game, So took with the pawn, and now invasion time. Note, if now knight e2, yeah, then black simply takes. That's the difference. Queen b1 was tried by So. That's a relatively good try. However, this position is completely winning for black if he plays it correctly. And the winning move is not a very spectacular one. It is just rook d2. That was the plan all along. I'm not sure what was missed here by Report. Really don't know. It looks very, very normal to do this because you wanted to double on the second rank. The second idea that black also has is to bring the queen over. Maybe he thought that he wins no matter what. He tried this move, intending maybe for this or queen g6, but white just plays knight e2, and now the tables have actually turned a little bit. Now black has to be careful. For example, sometimes white can actually take here on f4 and then play e5 next. If you ask the computer, it will point out that black can still hold this position, but he needs to play an absolutely fantastic move. I don't think this move is totally impossible to find, but it is definitely very difficult to find if you are in this situation now, because I'm fairly certain that the black player already had noticed that he had missed something, because you were so utterly winning, you feel like, oh my god, this is not so clear anymore, and then you lose balance and sometimes just blunder it away completely. So what was the move that I was mentioning? I think it can be found. I mean, it's c6. The idea is that you need the queen to join the attack, and queen h5 or something doesn't net anything, but if white takes now, you have queen a7, and this is going to be painful. Here black actually wins in this particular line, threatening discoveries, and in some cases just rook f2 check as well. Yeah, like let's say, I don't know, some move, and knight d3 is also good, but you can
check.
also do this, yeah.
Check.
For
checkmate.
For a mate. After c6, actually, white has to be cautious. It has only one move, b6, covering this. Yeah, and now after some line like this, it's quite funny. You know how it ends, huh?
Check.
And the engine claims a draw, yeah, or says it's a draw by repeating moves. Would probably have been a fair result of this game. Yeah, but Report did not play c6. He played the move queen g6, and this simply doesn't work. He must have miscalculated something here, because after knight e7, which was played by so, black does not have a winning tactic. I mean, it looks very dangerous, like rook f2 check and all kinds of sacrifices, but it just doesn't work. Yeah, he played it rook f2, but ultimately white is escaping. Rook g3 looks like a bit of a shocker, this move, but after the simple capture and now this, white can sacrifice the queen and now coordinate. Note how nicely white's pieces all of a sudden work together. Knight is covering this. The knight is also shielding from all kinds of checks, like from c3, from here. It's very nice, and white actually has a mating attack now, yeah, with the h pawn and the knight setting up the Arabian mate. Yeah, here there are just a couple of checks, but like this. But here black is running out of spy checks. Yeah, an absolute tragedy by Report, who played an absolutely fantastic game up to this critical point. Yeah, I mean, bishop c1. Okay, it's not really so difficult to see, but it's just very aesthetic. Yeah, snatching this, going back the same way. Yeah, and then f5. It's a very powerful move. And then he even found the fantastic b5. So, yeah, great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. And then after this, somehow he missed the, let's say, simple move, rook d2. After having found all the key moves that were difficult to see. Yeah. really tragic, and then losing with queen g6. Yeah, at the end, I think it's fair to say it was a very lucky win for the American player, for Wesley So, who now also is on a +1 score. If I'm not mistaken, we have Elyanov leading the event with +2 and a couple of players with +1. It's a very close field, as we already could have expected before. Yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I would have liked to tell you more about the Vaihi Nepomniachtchi game, but I'm overwhelmed by it. But I still think you had a good overview what happened in this round. Thanks for watching.